Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my next LinkedIn Live. Very happy to have Beth Granger on today. Beth and I, as I recall, we first met at LinkedIn at the group's launch back in the city, probably now almost 3 years ago. Yeah, can I hear you, Beth?
Yep, I said wow, but without sound.
I think the challenge for us at the time, we met a lot of great people that day and we were given a lot of great information. Of course, we know how that went. But the best part about it was the idea to actually meet people. And I can't wait for that to happen again. So I think, one of the things which I really wanted to touch on with you, Beth, is you've been at this a lot longer than me in terms of starting a business. And, I'd come from corporate too. So what are some of the challenges that you've had over the years? And if you don't mind sharing some of those, that would be great.
Challenges in my business?
Challenges in your business, challenges in actually getting started, perhaps. Because especially now, a lot of people have thought about starting businesses, and I think to some extent, it's great to have that insight because I think you've been out of it. You've been doing like 10, 11 years now. So
Yep.
I'm sure you've,
Yeah.
a lot of, hits and misses along the way. So I'd love to hear some of that if you're okay with that.
Sure. So I think, we know our craft. So someone might be very good at what they do. Doesn't mean they know how to run a business. Doesn't mean they know how to sell or do bookkeeping or, when you start a business, unless you are going to start with a team, you are every role in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be difficult. And it can be, you might not like all those roles, right? So you might not like to do sales. You might not like to do bookkeeping. You might not like to do marketing, depending on what your actual business is. And so when I started, I didn't have a business plan. I kind of went from just all different kinds of projects. And when I felt it was time to get a virtual assistant, someone told me something really good. And I wish I could remember who told it to me because I would give her credit. I remember it was a woman. It was somebody I was interviewing. And she said, "What do you need help with?" And I said, "I don't know. Can you follow me around all day?" She said, "No." She said, "Make 3 lists. Things you don't know how to do, things you don't like to do, and the soul searching one, things you're not good at. So you have to know what you're not good at. And those are the things to think about outsourcing." And I thought that was incredibly smart. I also added a 4th category, things I don't want to do, which is slightly different than the others. And it's similar to other techniques where people will make all the roles like an organization chart and put their name in every spot initially. So that taking that plunge into outsourcing some things, investing to give yourself more time, I think you're not going to do it right away, but over the years, it's been incredibly helpful. Because in the beginning, I wanted to do everything. I was a control freak. I just didn't want to let go of anything. And I still probably do more things than I should.
Well, I think you bring up a good point because when you have a business like I do, you want to have the control because it's your business, it's your baby. And to some extent, giving it to someone else is a little bit of a risk. So I think a big part of it with me has always been trusting not just my instincts, but working with people that they have my back and I have theirs. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I'm trying to think if there are any other, I'm not afraid to fail. So I'll experiment. If I get an idea, that's part of what I love about having my own business is if I get an idea, I don't have to ask anybody. I can just do it. So there have been things that I've thought of trying or I have tried and then decided maybe that's not the way I want to go or that's not the way I want to go at that time. So things don't have to be perfect. I'm definitely a perfectionist, but I try very hard to, what's the saying? A plan. I can't remember the exact saying, but the idea of things don't have to be perfect.
I think what's really great also is that you and myself and others, we're in a very similar space, but we collaborate because it's one of those things where we all know things, we all want to share things, and it makes all of us better. to bounce ideas off. And I think that's a big miss that a lot of people make. It's not, and I think the word was collaboration or something like that, but you want to learn from everyone, because I remember when you turned me on to Clubhouse, you were getting me a week or so. You got to go on Clubhouse, and you had me hooked. Now, I think that's all part of the social media, just to kind of be willing to share with no expectation of business per se, but just about knowledge. And knowledge transfer is so important.
Yeah, and we're so lucky. Not every industry or every group of people, you want to know people who do what you do, because you're going to have the same challenges, the same, or maybe different, but it just, having a community, a supportive community around you makes a difference. Absolutely.
So one of the things I was wondering, I went to my first in-person networking event last week since COVID, and it was very interesting. I don't know if you've gone to any yet or not, but what do you think about the idea of getting back to some sort of in-person networking, and what things might or might not change, since pre-COVID?
So I've been to 2 events.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the National Speakers Association annual luncheon.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first time back on the train, on the subway. And it felt wonderful to be there. Then I went to your more traditional lunch kind of networking event with people I didn't know.
Okay.
That was different. So, a little bit, are they vaccinated? I don't know. And then tomorrow I'm going to an event, and they're requiring everyone to be vaccinated, and maybe thinking about having to wear masks even if you are again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, one day at a time. It's hard to know. I know that before COVID, I put on LinkedIn local events.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just starting to think, is it time to do another in-person one? But I don't think it is yet for me. I don't want that responsibility. God forbid somebody came and got sick, even if we did everything that we possibly could. So I think I'm not ready to host something in person, but I am going to things in person.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I may be doing some in person with a Zoom interface or something at the same time, because a lot of the people that have been attending my events are not local,
right?
And you don't want to lose that traction. I think that's so important. What I want to do for now is just do some shout outs to people that are here. We have Christopher Johnson from Detroit. Morning, Christopher. We have Tegan Bartos. One of Claire Davis and I and Virginia, we do lions and tigers and resumes online. And that was it's one of those things where you want to acknowledge what your strengths and weaknesses are too. I remember, and I've watched your LinkedIn lives now for probably a year or so now. So I give you so much credit for going through it every week and doing it and accepting the challenges with that.
I love it. I do love it.
So what are some of the things you like about it? Because what I like is the ability as an introvert to actually have a one-on-one conversation and not think about the other things, and get guests on who I feel comfortable speaking with, like yourself. So what about you?
It's a similar thing. To me, it's like having this conversation and other people can join you. So, and I love being able to give people in my network a voice and a platform and introduce them to other people, essentially, by bringing them on my show. So I'm not looking to bring on famous people, or I'm bringing people that I know.
Exactly.
I think have something interesting to say. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. So
yeah, I know the first people I've been bringing on people I know and trust, and we've talked before. And I think that's a really helpful thing. I actually had a couple of people on last week, because I do a support group for those that are in transition. And I had 2 of them on. They've been out for 6 to 12 months, and we were just having a chat.
nice.
Things. And it's great exposure for them. And I also I said, this is a great opportunity to practice interviewing skills, practice doing something on the screen. And it's there's so many LinkedIn lives out there. There's so many people doing it, and it's not a competition in that way. But I want to get people that I know. And, you would ask me about a topic. I just love having a conversation and seeing how it goes. Instead of having an agenda, we do 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is that how you do yours? I mean, do you have it scripted more? Because
It's not exactly, but I do tend to ask my guest for a couple of conversation starter questions.
Mhm.
So I have questions, things I want to know about them, but there may be things that I don't know that would be great to talk about. So that's why I ask them. I don't always use those questions, but that helps me if there's a lull, or if I'm not sure what to ask them. I find that helpful.
So how do you find all of this exposure changing what you do? Because even 10 years ago, what we defined as social media is not really social media anymore. Now it's all over the place. And I know for me, it's a time drain to figure out where I'm going to go and how I'm going to do it. And next thing you know, it's the end of the day and you wish there was 8 days and all that. So how do you manage, what you're doing?
Yeah, I am, especially since this whole last year and a half, I am much more protective of my time. I used to, because I love learning new things and experimenting, I was everywhere. And the same thing with networking. You just can't spread yourself too thin, because then you never, it's like being on a treadmill, I mean, or a wheel, and spinning. So, for instance, right before I got on Clubhouse in November, I was thinking of going down the TikTok rabbit hole. And instead I got on Clubhouse, and I said, well, you know what? I can't give more than that. I need to work on my business. I need to help my clients. I need to do what I do. So I kind of try to not limit, but be deliberate about the time that I spend and where I spend it, and know that you can't be everywhere and do a good job at it. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with me, I've had to trust my instinct as to where I'm going to go and when. I go back and forth. There's people on all different platforms, and there are times you're like, I just want to have a conversation.
Yep.
It's nothing about texting or messaging. I want to talk to people, and it makes a big difference. And I can't wait. I'm actually doing next year, with COVID, it got canceled. I'm looking to do a road trip to go to different parts of the country to see the people who I've met online. And I'm going to coordinate that with other things going on, because I think it's just going to be great to see people.
I know people who have done that.
Really, how's it worked out?
I think they loved it. Hopefully the world will be ready for us to do those kinds of things.
I hope so too. I mean, even if we could all go into LinkedIn one time and just kind of get another tour or just see what's going on there. I thought it was so cool to go there. But I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, as I'm sure just about everyone here does, for sure. Do you think that the voice app is going to be a good or bad thing for LinkedIn?
There's no way to know, because just like we know from groups, things can not work, or like LinkedIn Live, things can work.
Yes.
So I think it depends what they allow them to do and how it works and how people take to it. So of course, will I try it as soon as I can? Yeah, sure. But we'll see what happens.
So what do you find, like, how do you define what you would consider your ideal client? I mean, is there someone who would you work with someone that needs all social media help? Would you focus on something, or does it really depend on the person? I'd just be curious.
So when I started my business, it was very broad, and I did everything from general social media strategy to even website project management. Over the years, I've narrowed it. So I do focus 99% on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And my ideal clients tend to be, so there are two sides. There are the corporate clients, and that's where I'm coming in to train a sales team, sometimes work with the marketing team to develop content that sales can use, or working with the whole organization to be good advocates. Mm-hmm. That's one side. When I work with individuals, it tends to be business owners, CEOs, very busy executives. And it's almost like I'm their personal trainer for LinkedIn. Right. They want to be effective in the shortest amount of time possible. And so I work with them one-to-one. Yeah, those tend to be, and I love it because I get to learn about all different businesses. Mm-hmm. So it's fascinating for me.
For me, I actually just brought on board a copywriter, because I can write, believe me, I can tweak and all that, but my focus is LinkedIn and I can tweak things a certain way. But some people have the gift of gab or the gift of writing. And it's about really feeling comfortable and saying to someone, I can do this, but I know someone who I work with that's better at it. Like I'll look at someone's resume or something and I can give some impartial information, but it's a trust factor. You have to know what you can and can't do. And I think that really improves your reputation for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and you tend to focus on people in transition, right?
Well, the funny thing about it is pre-COVID, it was a combination of that. Pre-COVID, it was people that were looking to passively look for jobs. In other words, I'm looking for a job, but I don't want my boss to know. I want to have a profile that lets people know I'm available, but I can't let them know. And then it became a pivot. I need to get a new job because I just got laid off. I need to reinvent myself. And, even before that, it's like, what do you mean by reinvent yourself? I mean, you can't just snap your fingers and go into pharma, let's say, or, and then there's a process to it. And now it's going back to kind of the way it was before. But I find a lot of people who are out of work actually want to start businesses. Or
it's wonderful.
They're doing so much consulting work on the side. And they're like, I want the freedom. I want the freedom of picking my own hours. I want the freedom of doing stuff. And there's a leap of faith. And I've said to people, this is the time to try it.
Yeah. It's not for everyone, but if it's for you, it's like riding a roller coaster ride, the highs, the lows, but there's nothing I would rather do.
Well, and you and I have actually talked about that. We have our good days and bad days, and we pick each other up and support each other because it's just going to happen,
Yep.
And that's a big part of being in a community like this. I mean, we feel comfortable and we all know what it's like. I may have a really high spot and then 12 hours later, that client says, I want to change my mind. And then you're like, what do I do? Got to move on.
Exactly.
So I'd be curious if anyone wants to add any additional comments or ask Beth and I anything. I mean, we are very willing to help, although I will bring up this caveat there, and Ed Hahn actually mentioned it. At what point do you not stop giving help, but you get to the point of like enough? You have to kind of figure some things out on your own without kind of milking our expertise. Do you find that to be the case at times, or are you always willing to share anything or everything?
So when I'm on something like this, or when I'm doing my own session, for that time period, people have my brain and my attention. If somebody wants more after the fact, then that's different. Then we talk about how we can work together. But when I'm, for instance, I do a lot of speaking. When I'm speaking, yes, ask me questions, ask me anything. If there's something that is too specific or is not a quick answer, then I might say, look, this is a different kind of thing. But while I'm doing something, yeah, it's out there.
I think the other thing that a lot of us struggle with is determining how much our time is worth when we actually have the conversation, whether it's on a project or an hourly basis. You don't want to sell yourself short, but at the same time, you want to get business, and you have to feel comfortable. And sometimes you can look, when you're looking for a job on Glassdoor, you can see what different salaries are, and you can get a range. It's a little bit different in our space.
Very different.
Especially when people say, you know what, this is all online, I can do it myself. Okay, sure, go online and find it out and then come back to us. But I mean, it's just one of those no right answer, but you really have to really trust yourself and your gut and feel comfortable with what you're charging.
Yes, and comfortable that not everyone is your client.
Exactly.
And you're not right for everyone, the same thing. So I know, for instance, I'm not the kind of person that gets up in front of a sales team and says, you have to crush it, and I'm going to teach you how. That's not my personality. I'm much more of a consultative approach. It's just a different personality. So there are times where, I realize it's not the right fit, but I'm happy to always introduce somebody to someone I think is a better fit.
Definitely. And even in my case, I mean, I have my rate, I have my expectations. I And the analogy I make is if you're going to have someone produce service, whether it's an electrician or a plumber, whatever it is, you're paying for their experience to do that.
Yep.
And I'm the first person, again, if someone asks and they want something different expectation, I'll be honest. I'll say, you need to work with someone else or do something else. And yes, we can stay in touch. I mean, I'll connect with anyone and everyone, but you have to feel comfortable. And that was one of the hardest things for me, honestly. I could have this business, but if I don't have an idea as to what I'm going to charge, and if it really is a good thing, then I'll be just spinning my wheels to do that. And you have to accept the failures. You know, you can make a pitch, you have a proposal, it's all great, and then we change our mind after you spend that. And that's a big part of it too.
Well, and so much of pricing is related to your own head and what you think. There's so much, like, psychologically you could go into when it comes to pricing, both the value for the customer, what you think you're worth, all these things that get jumbled up into pricing. So yeah, that's a whole other topic. And I do know some experts on that, by the way.
And that's the thing. Like if I was going to ask a question, you might know some answers, I might know some answers, but there's other people. Like I'm just started working with a business coach. A business coach is different than someone like yourself or that coach on LinkedIn. But it's really, and I'm actually going to post this here. It's knowing what your abilities are. So how should current graduates approach recruiters to get to know about opportunities available now? And my answer to that is it's really more about networking. And I always start with a current graduate. If you have, if LinkedIn has a group, an alumni group there, you should join the group or follow the page. But above all, everyone should, you just ask the question. If you connect with someone, find out when you say recruiter, what type of recruiter, what type of industry, instead of just throwing it out there to any recruiter, because then it becomes another time drain. Do you have different thoughts about that?
So something I've seen happen quite a bit, not with me, but with some people I know, because they work for large companies. People who graduated from the same school as them will reach out to them and say, hey, I went to XYZ school also. Would you be open to speaking with me? And most people are very open to that. So it's more of an information interview. Mm-hmm. And then if there's some kind of connection there, the person may be willing to, for instance, put their resume in and things like that. So I think that can be a good approach, is to network within people that went to your school, mm-hmm. or people that work at a company you might like to work at. Not necessarily directly with recruiters, just with people in the world, because they're the ones that are going to hear or know about if there's an opening in their company, things like that.
And a lot of jobs actually, they don't get posted right away. They're put internally in a company for a week or 2 weeks or however long, because they'd rather let people in the company share those with their own networks. And that's where the trust comes in. I think, we've gone through a little bit of an iteration. It used to be a lot of jobs were online on job boards, and now the job boards have become more like LinkedIn. But it's really just about reaching out to people and accepting the fact that not every job you apply for, you're going to get followed up. And there's a whole discussion, even with the proposal. You never hear back. You don't want to be a nudge, but, and that becomes a different thing entirely.
I have I'm not going to share it here because it's not mine to share, but I have an email that will get a response to it, because you want to get to a yes or a no, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You don't want that waiting. Either answer is fine, but which one is it? A way to, like, a huge percent of the time, get to either the yes or the no.
That's a challenge because, again, I think a lot of people want a quick fix about things. They want an answer right away, and it does take time to build up the relationship. And Michelle put this here. Someone who went to my high school I didn't know then was the person who introduced coaching to me. You just don't know who knows someone. The analogy that I always make is, in town, when my kids were growing up, I'd go to different sporting events, and the parents would just be my son's fathers. But that you look them up on LinkedIn, and oh my God, look who they are.
Right.
That sort of thing. Same with women. It's like, you don't know who they are. You just know them as a person at an event. And it's a great way to start a relationship. You just don't know who knows who.
100%.
I think, I also, and again, this is going back to even the idea of posting. You want to be genuine what you post. I think there's been a whole discussion about is LinkedIn becoming too Facebooky and vice versa, what's appropriate and what's not. Do you have any thoughts about how you should post, how comfortable you might be about sharing things that are non-techie, if you will, when you post?
Yeah, actually, I just had that conversation. I do something with some clients called collaborative content creation, and that's where it's like being a personal trainer for content. It's where I am there as they are developing, on a shared screen as they are developing content and kind of editing live and having a conversation about it. And somebody was not sure about adding something that from their personal perspective to what they were saying. And they said, I'm comfortable sharing this in an email. I'm not sure if I'm so comfortable sharing this on LinkedIn. And we had a conversation about it. And people have to do what they are comfortable with, and that's different. That to me, that's how much of yourself are you going to share in an interesting or thought-provoking post versus,
and the same go in your about section. In your about section, you want to, you definitely want to put a somewhat of a personal spin on that, but to make you come across that way. But there's a balance, and I think you're right. And everyone has to figure out what that balance is. It's not my two favorite words in networking are it depends. Everything with whatever it is. That's
always the answer. It depends.
It's true. Nothing is etched in stone. It's like, how long should your resume be? It depends. What should be your focus in job search? It depends, etc. I think, when I think about the last few years, I love meeting people who are like me and also people who are not like me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I need, it's like you want to get out of your comfort zone with people that really push you and challenge you.
Yeah.
It makes you a better person and a better networker for sure.
Exactly.
So I appreciate the chat today. I think we were going to do this for half an hour or so. Is there anything specific that you wanted to mention or share about if people wanted to get a hold of you, or if you're willing to connect with people? Definitely use that opportunity now, because I know this is a LinkedIn Live for me, but I definitely want you to put it out there, let people know how good you
are. Well, I have a backlog of people that have to decide if I'm going to connect with them. But if you're here watching this live or on replay and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, do say this is where we met, essentially. And of course, I do have the follow button on as default right now because I'm testing the creator mode. Okay. But I am, I love to connect with people, get to know people, and grow my network.
So what do you think about creator mode and the like now? Because as we're ending, because I love the cover story aspect for sure, but that's not creator mode.
Right.
And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about it.
I think it's too soon to tell. They're going through this hiring spree where they're hiring all these creator managers, I think they're calling them.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to think there will be more interaction and more, I don't know what yet, maybe more features, more something. So right now, no, it doesn't really do anything. It just moves stuff around. It doesn't really add any value, but I am hopeful to see what happens.
I know in my case, I've been doing different types of, John Aspirian does experiments all the time.
I love that. Yeah.
And I've done a different type of experiment. I've changed my profile, different keywords. I've changed things around just to see what happens, because every week, we have the ability to check our dashboard. And I've gone back and forth on and off creator mode too, just to see what the difference is. And I find I'm not getting as many spam connection requests now. As LinkedIn limited the number to 100 a week based on, and then as you get more acceptances, they'll up the rate. But I used to get a lot of different spam type because they would just throw the stuff out. And I don't know if that's your experience or not too. Now they're just coming.
No, see, I don't feel like it's any different.
Really?
In fact, before creator mode, I tested the follow button to see if that would change the quality or quantity.
Mhm.
And I don't think I've noticed that much of a difference. But also, I get so many without a message that those just sitting there, because my process is some are immediate yeses if I actually know them,
Mhm.
some are immediate no's, and then there are those in the middle where I have to decide or reach out to decide, and I just don't have the time. So
Yeah, I think, and me too, like I've done a bit of a 180 on connection requests. I used to really think about accepting some and others not, and now they're all so canned. And you can tell it's a cut and paste of something that they've been given, and maybe they're replacing, putting my name in where the name field is, and maybe the job is in the job field, but there's nothing to it.
right.
And I don't have, I don't have the interest in following up or saying you should do better or anything like that. I just think, you move on. I use some of them for examples in my presentation.
Yes, I have a lot of really good examples. Thank you, world, for providing them.
No, exactly. I mean, my favorite one is the one, "Hey Kenneth," as a connection request. I'm like, okay, hey Kenneth. Better. So I want to thank you again very much for the opportunity, Beth. I really, really appreciate
This was fun. Great to catch up.
And we'll definitely see each other again, hopefully sooner rather than later in the city. If not, we'll, I'll come to the city. We'll just meet somewhere because it'd be just great to see everyone again. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great day.